The skies over London cleared momentarily, revealing the massive silhouette of the Hegemony command vessel hovering like a darkened sun. Citizens paused in their evacuation to stare upward, some capturing images on their devices before military personnel ushered them along. This wasn't how humanity had imagined first contact. Decades of optimistic science fiction had painted pictures of benevolent visitors bearing gifts of knowledge. Instead, reality delivered conquerors with weapons that seemed to bend physics itself. At the temporary United Earth Command Center buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Diana Reyes slammed her fist on the holographic display. "We've lost contact with the Seoul defense grid," she announced to the grim-faced officers around her. "The Mumbai shield generators followed 10 minutes ago. At this rate, we have less than 72 hours before all major defense systems are neutralized." The youngest officer present, Captain James Chen, cleared his throat. "General, conventional resistance is clearly failing. Perhaps we should consider alternative strategies." "We're being systematically dismantled, Captain." "What alternatives could possibly matter now?" Reyes asked, her voice heavy with the weight of impending defeat. "The Hegemony follows predictable attack patterns," Chen responded, pulling up tactical data on his tablet. "They expect us to defend vital infrastructure and population centers. But what if we didn't?" A murmur ran through the command staff. The idea seemed preposterous, even treasonous. Yet as Chen outlined his thinking, expressions shifted from skepticism to cautious interest. Meanwhile, in the scattered human settlements across Mars, colonists witnessed something unexpected. The Hegemony forces, so organized in their assault on Earth, appeared confused by the Martian response. Rather than mounting a unified defense, colonists had scattered into the vast tunnel networks beneath the surface. Small teams emerged randomly to conduct hit-and-run operations with no discernible pattern. "These humans make no tactical sense," Sub-Commander Vex Nara reported to her superior aboard the Voth flagship. Her scaled fingers gestured at the holographic map of Martian surface activities. "They abandon valuable resources to defend worthless positions. They retreat when they have advantage and attack when outnumbered. There is no logic to their resistance." Grand Admiral Zexithar's reptilian eyes narrowed as he studied the patterns. "They are primitive creatures operating on instinct rather than strategy. Their chaotic behavior is merely the death throes of an inferior species." Continue the established conquest protocol. Unknown to the Hegemony leadership, this chaotic behavior was anything but random. Deep beneath Olympus Mons, colonial governor Maya Okafor had implemented an experimental defense doctrine developed by an eccentric military theorist years before the invasion. Asymmetric response theory, he had called it, arguing that against a superior force, unpredictability itself becomes the most potent weapon. As Earth's conventional military forces crumbled under the overwhelming technological superiority of the Hegemony, a different kind of resistance was taking shape. Something the aliens, with their rigid hierarchies and predictable strategies, were completely unprepared to comprehend, let alone counter. The seeds of humanity's ultimate victory were being planted even in these darkest hours of apparent defeat. In the sterile confines of her laboratory, Dr. Eleanor Chen worked methodically through the night. The Hegemony-issued translator badge on her coat gave her access to restricted areas, a privilege granted to humans deemed useful to the occupation. Little did her alien supervisors know that each interaction provided her with invaluable data on their physiology and behavior patterns. "Respiratory rate increases by 28% when they process conflicting information," she whispered into her hidden recorder as a Voth administrator left her office. "Pupillary dilation suggests cognitive strain rather than emotional response." Eleanor's laboratory, ostensibly dedicated to helping humans adapt to alien environmental standards, had become the nexus of the most comprehensive xenobiological study in history. Behind false walls and beneath innocent-looking equipment, she assembled detailed profiles of all 7 Hegemony species, cataloging weaknesses the aliens didn't even realize they possessed. Across the Atlantic, in the shattered remains of London, Resistance Coordinator Michael Okafor distributed food supplies to civilians. His official title under the occupation was District Resource Manager, a position the Hegemony created to maintain human productivity. The aliens believed him to be an efficient collaborator, selected for his organizational skills and apparent acceptance of the new order. "Remember," he told a young mother as he handed her extra rations, "when they ask if you're satisfied with your allocation, tell them it's more than sufficient. Then look slightly to the left, as if distracted." "What will that accomplish?" she asked, clutching her sleeping child. Michael smiled thinly. "They can't understand why we constantly give contradictory signals. Our words say one thing, our body language another. It confuses their entire sensory system. Small things multiplied by millions of humans, creating constant cognitive dissonance." The mother nodded, adding another small stone to the mountain that would eventually crush their conquerors. In New Geneva, Grand Admiral Zexthar reviewed population compliance reports with growing irritation. The holographic displays showed productivity metrics within acceptable parameters, yet something felt inexplicably wrong. Humans performed their assigned tasks with apparent diligence, yet efficiency rates remained stubborn percentages below projections. "Perhaps we have miscalculated their physiological capabilities," suggested Science Director Malvec, her crystalline form refracting light across the command center. "Their endurance may be less than our initial assessments." Zexthar's clawed hand waved dismissively. "The issue isn't physical. Look at these behavioral analyses. They display none of the psychological markers expected from a subjugated species. Where is the depression cycle, the acceptance phase? It's as if they're all simultaneously pretending that this occupation is temporary." "Pretending?" Malvec's crystalline features shifted in confusion. "To what purpose? Reality cannot be altered by imagining alternatives." The Admiral growled in frustration. "Increase monitoring of all human supervisors. I want neural scans of representative population, samples across all territories. Something isn't right, and I will discover what these primitives think they're hiding." Neither Zexthar nor any member of the hegemony could comprehend that the very concept of pretending, the cognitive ability to maintain two contradictory beliefs simultaneously, was the weapon humanity had begun deploying against them. Like an immune system fighting an infection it doesn't recognize, the hegemony had no defense against this uniquely human capability. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Jacobs moved silently through the misty Appalachian forest, his team spread out in a practiced formation. Years of special operations training had prepared him for many scenarios, but never for becoming an anthropological researcher while fighting an interstellar war. "Target installation ahead," whispered Sergeant Rivera through their subvocal communication system. The alien outpost gleamed dully in the morning light, its architecture an unsettling blend of crystalline structures and organic components. "Remember? The objective," Jacobs reminded his team. "We're not here to engage. Observation only." For 3 weeks they had monitored this communication relay station, recording alien interactions when the beings thought themselves unobserved. Each team member now carried specialized equipment designed by the Resistance's engineering division, devices that could capture the subtle electromagnetic emissions from hegemony neural pathways. "Commander, you should see this," Rivera called, from her observation position. Jacobs crawled forward, taking the offered binoculars. Through them he watched as a NOR supervisor berated a Talaxi technician. The luminescent NOR's appendages fluttered in obvious agitation, while the insectoid Talaxi's compound eyes reflected prismatic light patterns that indicated distress. "They're arguing," Rivera whispered. "But look at their posture. Neither is displaying deceptive indicators." Jacobs nodded slowly. 3 months of observations confirm it. They literally cannot lie to each other. Every communication is direct, unambiguous. "But that makes no evolutionary sense," commented Lieutenant Park, the team's xenobiologist. "How could any species develop advanced civilization without the ability to conceptualize alternatives to immediate reality?" "They're telepathic technologies," Jacobs replied. "Dr. Chen's research suggests they evolved alongside communication methods that made deception impossible. Imagine developing language in a world where everyone could instantly verify your thoughts." The revelation had profound implications. During the trek back to their hidden base, Jacobs composed his report for resistance leadership. This wasn't merely an interesting cultural observation, it was a potentially war-winning discovery. Meanwhile, in her Geneva laboratory, Dr. Chen worked frantically to confirm the same hypothesis through different means. The neural scans of hegemony subjects showed remarkable patterns when exposed to human fiction. "Run the test again," she instructed her assistant, Dr. Patel. "Same story, but change the framing. First as historical fact, then as acknowledged fiction." The results were consistent and revelatory. When presented with human fiction labeled as such, alien brains exhibited profound confusion. Neural pathways, normally used for language processing, shut down entirely, as if encountering a toxic substance. "The implications are staggering," she told the assembled resistance leaders during their secure, quantum-encrypted conference that evening. Hegemony. Species physically cannot process intentional untruths between sentient beings. Their concepts of story and fiction are purely historical or educational, literal recordings of events that actually occurred or simulations for training purposes. General Reyes, her face grave on the secure display, understood immediately. Then their entire military doctrine, their social structures, their very perception of reality, all built on the assumption that communication between intelligent beings is always factually accurate. Dr. Chen finished. "They have no defense against a species for whom selective truth-telling is not merely possible, but natural." A slow smile spread across General Reyes's face. "We found their weakness." Operation Kaleidoscope spread across occupied territories with remarkable speed. Underground networks transmitted the strategy through seemingly innocent channels. Recipe exchanges that contained coded instructions, children's drawings with hidden patterns, even graffiti that appeared random to alien observers but conveyed precise meanings to human eyes. In the Brazilian agricultural zone, farmers implemented one of the most effective confusion tactics. When hegemony supervisors inspected their fields, workers displayed absolute dedication to planting crops in intricate geometric patterns. "These formations optimize growth according to ancient Earth wisdom," explained Chief Agronomist Sofia Mendez, with complete sincerity when questioned. The aliens, detecting no physiological signs of deception, logged the information as cultural knowledge. They couldn't comprehend that the elaborate patterns served no agricultural purpose whatsoever. When harvests performed exactly as they would with normal planting methods, the hegemony analysts spent countless hours trying to understand the non-existent relationship between crop formations and yields. Across the Pacific, Japanese resistance cells specialized in linguistic confusion. During mandatory translation sessions, they introduced subtle contextual shifts that technically maintained accurate word-for-word translations while completely altering implied meanings. "Yes, we are most pleased with the new regulations," AR. Community representative would state with perfect composure, while slightly shifting his posture in ways that communicated the opposite message to human observers. The aliens, unable to process the contradiction between verbal and nonverbal communication, experienced growing cognitive dissonance. Commander Jacobs personally led the most daring implementation of Protocol Omega. His strike team, composed of former maintenance workers with architectural knowledge, infiltrated New Geneva's primary administrative complex with credentials that were simultaneously legitimate and fraudulent. They were actual maintenance personnel, but their scheduled assignments had been manipulated through careful data corruption. "Remember, we're not saboteurs," he briefed his team before deployment. "We're perception engineers." Over 7 consecutive nights, they systematically altered the environmental systems of the alien headquarters. Temperature controls were recalibrated to fluctuate by imperceptible amounts. Lighting panels were adjusted to shift color temperature gradually throughout the day. Most ingeniously, they reprogrammed automated doors to open with a half-second delay, but only for certain hegemony species. None of these changes would register as malfunction, Jacobs explained to resistance leadership afterward. But collectively, they create persistent environmental inconsistency. The Voth experience the complex differently than the Nor, who experience it differently than the Talaxi. Similar operations unfolded worldwide, creating an environment where reality itself seemed increasingly unstable to the occupying forces. When hegemony commanders reported these discrepancies, technical scans showed all systems functioning within established parameters. The aliens' conviction that technology couldn't lie prevented them from identifying the true source of their growing discomfort. Dr. Chen, monitoring the psychological impact through her position in the Geneva Medical Division, documented the effects with clinical precision. Stress indicators increasing across all hegemony species, she noted in her encrypted reports. Cognitive function impairment accelerating, particularly in decision-making centers. They're beginning to doubt their own perceptions. General Reyes reviewed the data with grim satisfaction. And they still haven't identified the pattern, she observed. Because there is no pattern, just millions of humans simultaneously introducing controlled chaos into a system that fundamentally cannot comprehend deception. The crystalline tower of New Geneva glittered in the morning sun, its alien architecture a stark reminder of Earth's occupation. Inside, the atmosphere was anything but harmonious. What had begun as a routine High Council meeting had devolved into unprecedented chaos. Explain these discrepancies immediately, Grand Admiral Zexthar demanded, his scaled skin flushing deep crimson with rage. He gestured at the holographic display showing productivity metrics from the North American sector. How can resource extraction increase while processed output decreases? The materials cannot simply vanish. The Talaxi Analytics Director clicked, her mandibles nervously. Our calculations show no systemic error. Perhaps the human workers... The humans follow instructions precisely, interrupted the NOR compliance officer, his luminescent form pulsing with agitation. Our empathic readings detect no rebellion in their work centers. Then your readings are flawed, the Voth security commander hissed, towering over the smaller NOR. Just as your species has failed to properly interpret human thought patterns since this occupation began. The council chamber erupted into accusations as representatives of the 7 species turned against each other. None recognized that they were experiencing the first symptoms of a carefully engineered psychological virus. Dr. Chen observed the escalating conflict through surveillance feeds in her hidden laboratory. The fracturing of the hegemonies unified. Command was proceeding faster than even her most optimistic projections. The compound is working, she told her small team of trusted researchers. Their neural pathways are becoming increasingly susceptible to doubt. On the laboratory table lay her greatest achievement, a synthetic molecule derived from Earth bacteria that targeted specific receptors in the alien brain centers responsible for certainty processing. Harmless to humans, the compound produced no obvious symptoms in hegemony species beyond a gradually increasing inability to reconcile contradictory information. The water purification systems in all 7 continental headquarters have been successfully modified, reported Dr. Patel, checking the encrypted confirmation signals on his tablet. Compound distribution is at 93% of target concentrations. Dr. Chen nodded with quiet satisfaction. And with each passing day, their cognitive thresholds lower. Information they would have previously dismissed as anomalous now triggers profound uncertainty. The psychological deterioration manifested most visibly in the hegemony's enforcement protocols. Grand Admiral Zexthar, increasingly paranoid about human resistance, ordered public demonstrations of hegemony power, mandatory viewing of punishment for minor infractions, increased checkpoints, expanded curfews. Each measure backfired spectacularly. Humans gathered for public punishments with expressions that aliens read as appropriately fearful, yet somehow conveyed solidarity to other humans. Checkpoints processed citizens who presented perfect documentation while subtle body language communicated mockery. Curfews were technically obeyed while underground movement actually increased. Their strategy makes no sense, Zexthar raged during a private meeting with his Voth commanders. They comply with every regulation yet accomplishment nothing we intend. It's as if... He struggled to articulate a concept his species had never evolved to understand. As if they know our expectations and deliberately create a false appearance of meeting them. The commander's aide His scales, dulled from stress, offered the closest approximation their language could manage. Perhaps they show us what we wish to see rather than what truly exists. Zexthar stared at his subordinate with growing horror. For the first time, a terrible suspicion formed in his mind, that perhaps the hegemony, with all its power, had fundamentally misunderstood the species they had conquered. Grand Admiral. Zexthar hadn't slept in what humans would measure as 72 hours. His personal quarters, once a sanctuary of order and clarity, now felt hostile. The environmental systems seemed to resist his preferred temperature settings. The lighting periodically shifted in ways his subordinates insisted were within normal parameters. Even the automated nutrient dispensers produced meals that appeared correct, but tasted subtly wrong. He stared at his reflection in the polished wall panel, noting the dullness creeping across his once vibrant scales. Dark hollows had formed beneath his eyes. Was this what the ancients called battle fatigue? Impossible. He had commanded campaigns across 12 star systems without experiencing such symptoms. Admiral, his communication panel chimed. The human data you requested has been compiled. With a clawed hand that trembled almost imperceptibly, Zexthar activated his display. For weeks he had ordered comprehensive observation of human behaviors across all occupation zones. The results defied analysis. In Europe, humans formed daily queues that dissolved upon reaching their destination. In Asia, workers constructed intricate machinery that, when completed, served no discernible function. In Africa, entire communities performed synchronized activities that scanning technology identified as dancing, but which followed no consistent pattern or purpose. Most disturbing were the reports from his own officers. Commander Kavex claimed humans in his jurisdiction were systematically moving building furnishings overnight by distances too small to trigger security alerts. Lieutenant Sikora reported citizens responding to questions with statements that were factually accurate yet somehow failed to provide useful information. This species is unlike any we have encountered, his chief xenobiologist had concluded in her final report, before requesting reassignment due to cognitive distress. The final straw came during the 72nd hour of his vigil. Reports from monitoring stations worldwide showed humans engaging in what intelligence analysts designated the synchronized confusion campaign. For reasons impossible to determine, millions of humans simultaneously began performing actions that individually appeared purposeful, but collectively made no sense. Farmers harvested crops only to replant them. Medical personnel administered treatments that scans confirmed had no effect, positive or negative. Engineers disassembled critical infrastructure components, carefully inspected them, then reassembled them without making any changes. The behavior spread like a contagion, transmitted through means the hegemony's advanced monitoring systems couldn't detect. When questioned, humans provided explanations that contained no detectable falsehoods yet left hegemony interrogators more confused than before. In his private command center, Zexthar reviewed the latest neural stability reports from his officer corps. The results confirmed his worst fears. Across all 7 species, but particularly among the Voth, cognitive function was deteriorating. Decision-making capabilities had declined by 37%. Perception reliability metrics showed alarming inconsistencies. Something fundamental was breaking down in the hegemony's collective understanding of reality. With trembling claws, Grand Admiral Zexthar composed what would become the most controversial order in hegemony history. All human presence represents a cognitive infection, threatening galactic stability. Initiate species purge protocol effective immediately. As the command transmitted across hegemony networks, Admiral Kavala of the Lyri species rose from her crystalline command chair aboard the orbital flagship Eternal Clarity. Her gem-like eyes shifted to her executive officer. This order demonstrates unfitness for command, she announced with crystal clarity. The Grand Admiral has been compromised. Similar rejections echoed across command channels as the hegemony's unified structure fractured irreparably. The first shots of civil war would soon follow. Supreme General Marcus Jacob stood before the assembled commanders in the Antarctic Command Center, his expression somber yet determined. After 3 years of meticulous preparation, the moment had arrived. The massive underground facility, carved beneath 2 kilometers of ancient ice, hummed with activity as Earth's hidden military force prepared to reveal itself. Operation Reversal begins in 6 hours, he announced, gesturing to the global tactical display. Red indicators showed hegemony forces engaged in battle with their former allies across every continent. For 3 years, we've hidden our true capabilities while learning everything about theirs. Today, we stop hiding. The plan had required extraordinary patience. While openly surrendering conventional military assets, humanity had secretly preserved its best scientists, engineers, and soldiers. Working in hidden facilities, they had methodically reverse-engineered captured hegemony technology, enhancing it with uniquely human innovations. Deployment status, Jacobs asked his operations director. Colonel Fatima Rahman tapped her console, bringing up a worldwide readiness report. All strike teams in position. Subterranean launch facilities at 97% readiness. Orbital, insertion units aboard civilian maintenance vessels report green status. Dr. Chen's aerosol delivery systems are primed in all target zones. Outside the command center, in a vast underground hangar, rows of sleek aircraft stood ready. Their hulls, incorporated salvaged hegemony metal alloys combined with experimental human stealth systems. Engineers had enhanced alien propulsion technology, with modifications the hegemony would never have considered. Improvements born from humanity's talent for lateral thinking and unconventional approaches. Similar preparations were underway, worldwide. Beneath the Pacific Ocean, submarine carriers prepared to launch amphibious assault craft. In abandoned mine systems across Europe, armored divisions readied vehicles with hybrid human-alien technology. Each unit had trained for years, perfecting tactics specifically designed to exploit the psychological vulnerabilities Dr. Chen had identified. The first phase targets Voth command centers exclusively, Jacobs continued, highlighting primary objectives on the tactical display. Admiral Kavala's rebellion has removed 3/7 of the hegemony fleet from our immediate concern. Her forces are currently engaging Zexthar's loyalists in high orbit. And our position regarding the rebel hegemony factions? Asked General Okafor, commander of the African theater. Neutral for now, Jacobs replied. Let them weaken each other. Dr. Chen's latest intelligence suggests Kavala's faction remains fundamentally unable to comprehend our strategy, despite opposing Zexathar's extermination order. In her forward command post near Geneva, Dr. Chen oversaw final preparations for deploying her neurological compound. The aerosol version, now weaponized for combat use, would be released near remaining loyal hegemony strongholds. The compound affects perception centers first, she explained to the strike team leaders. Exposed troops will experience visual doubling, then cognitive dissonance when processing sensory information. They won't be incapacitated, but they'll be unable to distinguish between actual threats and false perceptions. At precisely 0300 hours Greenwich Mean Time, General Jacobs gave the order. Across the planet, humanity's hidden forces emerged from concealment. Missile platforms disguised as civilian water treatment facilities revealed their true purpose, launching precision strikes against Voth command centers. Aircraft rose from underground hangars, their engines remarkably silent thanks to modified hegemony technology. Within the first hour, human forces achieved complete tactical surprise. The hegemony's divisions, already compromised by civil war and cognitive deterioration, found themselves facing an enemy that operated outside all predictive models. First phase objectives secured, reported Colonel Rahman as confirmation signals, appeared on the command display. Casualty rates 80% below estimates. The enemy is responding exactly as anticipated, with complete confusion. General Jacobs nodded grimly. Begin Phase 2. Deploy the false weaknesses. The observation deck of Earth's new orbital headquarters offered Admiral Helena Reyes a panoramic view of humanity's greatest achievement. Below, the planet showed signs of healing. Green returning to scorched landscapes, cities beginning to rebuild with a blend of human and alien architecture. Above, stars sparkled against the void. now holding promise rather than threat. Telemetry confirms the last hegemony warships have left the system, reported her executive officer. Long range. Sensors show their transition to faster-than-light travel at the heliopause boundary. Helena nodded, her weathered face reflecting both weariness and quiet pride. 5 years, she murmured. From first contact to final victory. The war's conclusion had revealed truths more profound than anyone anticipated. Intelligence gathered from captured databases showed the true scale of what humanity had overcome. The Galactic hegemony had ruled over 3,000 worlds across 900 star systems for millennia. Species far more technologically advanced than humans had fallen before their might. Yet humanity, with fewer resources and inferior technology, had prevailed. In the Grand Reception Hall, 16 decks below, Earth's provisional government welcomed a most unexpected delegation. The crystalline Lyri, once part of the hegemony, had arrived not as conquerors or even equals, but as supplicants seeking alliance. Your species possesses something we do not understand, but desperately wish to learn, stated Ambassador Letheria, light refracting through her translucent form in patterns conveying deep respect. The ability to comprehend both reality and representation simultaneously, to navigate between what is and what appears to be. Dr. Eleanor Chen, now Earth's foremost xenobiological authority, studied the ambassador thoughtfully. You mean deception? We lack even proper terminology for this concept, Letheria admitted. In all our history, across all hegemony species, we evolved alongside technologies that made direct neural communication possible. The concept of intentionally projecting false information was evolutionarily unnecessary. General Jacobs, standing beside Dr. Chen, nodded slowly. While humans evolved requiring complex social cooperation despite having no direct access to each other's thoughts, we needed to interpret facial expressions, body language, vocal tones, and sometimes to hide our true intentions for survival advantage. The implications extended far beyond military applications. As the newly formed Galactic Confederation began taking shape, humans found themselves valued not for conquest but for their unique cognitive abilities. Their capacity for abstract thinking, metaphor, hypothetical scenarios, and navigation of social complexities made them invaluable mediators and problem solvers. In the maximum security facility beneath Geneva, Dr. Chen conducted her weekly research interview with Grand Admiral Zexthar. The once mighty Voth commander had requested these sessions himself, driven by a need to understand what had happened to his invincible armada. I have reviewed the historical transmissions again, he said, his once brilliant scales now permanently dulled. We monitored all your communications channels. We scanned every frequency. Yet your resistance coordinated globally without detection. Because we've always communicated on multiple levels simultaneously, Dr. Chen explained. Words, expressions, contexts, cultural references, layers of meaning invisible to species that evolved with telepathic transparency. Zexthar's reptilian eyes studied her with newfound clarity. Your victory was inevitable from first contact, wasn't it? Not because of superior strength or strategy, but because we fundamentally could not comprehend how your minds work. Doctor, Chen smiled gently. The universe is vast, Admiral. Perhaps the real lesson is that different evolutionary paths create different types of intelligence, and true wisdom comes from recognizing that diversity is strength rather than weakness. As she left the facility, Dr. Chen gazed at the sunset painting Geneva's rebuilt skyline in golden light. The real reason humans won wasn't military might or even clever strategy. It was the uniquely human gift for navigating complexity, for understanding that truth itself can be multifaceted, and for seeing possibility where others saw only what already existed.